Alright, I've got to be a little quiet because it's nighttime here, bedtime for the rest of the people in the house, but I want to make sure that I do this video, this part 3, now that we've gone ahead and read Daniel 11 and we understand what's going to happen. I want you to be able to see what Netanyahu is talking about when he addressed the Knesset on Monday. So this is kind of a long article. It's not super long. I'm going to try to get through it pretty quickly. It comes from the Times of Israel. It's entitled Netanyahu Backs Historic Haredi Draft Bill in Fiery Knesset Debate on Wartime Conduct. All right, and just so you know what Haredi is, I think I'm saying that right. Haredi is a member of any of various Orthodox Jewish sects characterized by strict adherence to the traditional form of Jewish law and rejection of modern secular culture, many of whom do not recognize the modern state of Israel as a spiritual authority. So these are Orthodox Jews of various Jewish sects that are basically do not recognize the modern state of Israel and its authority. And so part of what they've been doing is refusing, because they've had this exemption for so long, to be forced into the IDF. And as you've seen more recently, or, in the last couple of years, Israel has been forcing them to either go into the IDF or go to jail. And they've done horrific things to them. These are their own people. They beat them down in the streets. They call them self-hating Jews. Okay, so here is a secular, quote-unquote, Jew who constantly speaks as though he knows the Bible, but all he does is take the Bible and twist it around for his own narrative. Wears a yarmulke, similar to fake Christianity, wearing their cross like he belongs in the Mickey Mouse Club. Doesn't make you any more spiritual or religious because you wear that stuff. And in fact, we know that the cross is an image, and we know that the yarmulke is not actually commanded in Scripture. There was no covering commanded in Scripture for anyone to wear except for the priests who wore a turban. Paul addressed it, didn't he? He said a woman is given her hair as a covering and a man does not wear a covering. So what's up with that? So this secular person who calls himself a Jew has no regard for God's law, because here's a group of Haredi Jews who are Orthodox Jews saying, we do not recognize Zionism as Judaism. We do not acknowledge the authority of this fake Israel, and we're not going to fight your wars, plain and simple. And they have been willing to go to jail over it. They've been willing to protest over it. They are standing firm that they are not going to be doing this. And so Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is speaking in favor of this bill, forcing them to violate God's law, because that's not what his concern is. That has never been his concern. This has never been about God. This has been about greed and avoiding his inevitable jail time. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke in favor of a controversial bill regulating Haredi exemptions from military service on Monday, defending it for the first time during a heated Knesset debate and claiming that it would lead to thousands of reservists being freed from service. So he is defending that Haredi Jews should not be able to get exemptions from military service. Let me state that another way. He is saying that they are not allowed to obey God's law, that he is God, and that he is going to determine whether they will serve or not. He is saying that he has authority over what they are trying to obey that comes from God, that he has the authority to say, no, you're not going to obey God. You understand what's happening here? You understand what's going to happen to you? Because you should look alive. Speaking during a so-called 40-signature debate, a parliamentary mechanism that allows the opposition to compel the premier to appear once a month, Netanyahu defended not only the draft bill, but also his handling of the war in Gaza, Israel's foreign relations, and his own legal wranglings as he responded to lawmakers accusing his government of causing severe diplomatic and domestic damage through his wartime policies. So his people, his own people, are not real happy with what he's doing. You'll go on to see that he does not defend that with the word, the Torah. That's not the authority. He thinks he's the authority. Netanyahu hit back at what the opposition described as the collapse of Israel's international standing, arguing that Israel remained diplomatically, militarily, and economically dominant despite its 2 years at war with Hamas, highlighting his ties to global leaders and defending contentious policies, ranging from his pardon request to plans for a commission of inquiry into the October 7th massacre. And notice their language here. The massacre that occurred on October 7th. This is a war in Gaza, but a massacre on October 7th. He called the newly revised draft legislation the beginning of a historic process to integrate Haredim into the IDF. Right, this is always like his thing. Like, he's just like Donald Trump. I mean, they tout themselves. This is historic. This is the beginning of a historic process to integrate Haredim into the IDF. Like, that's a good thing. Like, well, who cares if it's historic? There's a lot of things that are historic that are just atrocious. Accusing the opposition of having pushed an evasion bill, an epithet used by critics to describe his government's proposal. The draft evasion law is the law you brought forward, not ours, he said, adding that his government's proposal would achieve conscription targets 3 to 4 times higher than those proposed by the short-lived government led by the then Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and current opposition leader Yair Lapid. The law regulates the status of yeshiva students. The world of Torah has protected us for thousands of years and will continue to protect us while conscripting the Haredi public, he added. Good grief. You see how he just kind of throws that in? The world of Torah has protected us. This, by the way, is also why I said, don't misunderstand. Just because they don't have their judgment on them yet, they will. Don't misunderstand that these are a blessed people. They are not a blessed people. The Premier's defense of the government's draft law marked his first remarks on Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee Chair Boaz Bismuth's new law to regulate conscription of ultra-Orthodox yeshiva students. The opposition, as well as several coalition members, have criticized the bill that is currently being debated in the committee, saying it contains loopholes and imposes ineffective sanctions that fail to encourage enlistment. For the past year, the Haredi leadership has been pushing for the passage of a law that would largely keep its constituency out of the IDF after the High Court ruled that decades-long blanket exemptions from Army duty informally afforded to full-time Haredi yeshiva students were illegal. Okay, so then in the article, if you'd like to look this up, there is a picture of police detaining an ultra-Orthodox man during a protest against Haredi enlistment into the IDF outside a military recruitment center in Jerusalem in November 12th, 2025, and they're knocking him off his feet. I mean, they're using aggression. It's clear from the picture. Why? Why is this necessary? To their own people. And notice he just cited the Torah, and yet he's going to persecute those who are holding to the Torah. How does that even make sense? How can you say that you are a follower of the Torah, that you're blessed by the Torah, that you're protected by the Torah, when you don't obey it? And you force other people to disobey and then knock them down in the streets or detain them. This doesn't make sense, does it? Some 80,000 ultra-Orthodox men aged between 18 and 24 are currently believed to be eligible for military service but have not enlisted. The IDF has said it urgently needs 12,000 recruits due to the strain on standing and reserve forces caused by the war in Gaza and other military challenges. Well, yeah, I mean, they need to keep their propaganda going, too, you know? And this is their tool. I mean, they brainwash their people in Israel from grade school all the way till they have to enlist in the IDF, and then they brainwash them more. And this is where this incredible evil is coming from. Netanyahu argued that the proposed bill would ease the burden on reservists and increase conscription from the Haredi public, claiming that for every additional regular battalion from the Haredi public, 10 reserve battalions will be released, which he said would lead to the release of hundreds of reserve battalions en masse. Speaking after Netanyahu, Lapid accused the prime minister and his allies of deliberately avoiding committee discussions to distance themselves from the legislation and vowed the bill would not pass in any form, saying the opposition would fight it by every means. Okay, so this is one thing that's going on. Now we're going to talk about his propaganda of stronger than ever, which actually he's not entirely wrong. And this is where I really want to focus. But I did want to read the beginning of the article because I want to show you that he is persecuting people who are trying to obey the Torah while claiming that the Torah protects him. That is absurd. After sitting through a series of scathing criticisms from the opposition members, Netanyahu opened his speech by mocking the subject of the debate, calling the assertion that Israel's global standing has collapsed over the war a detachment from reality, and insisting that Israel today is stronger than ever. He isn't necessarily wrong about that, and biblical prophecy shows us that that is correct. You can't really conflate the reputation of Israel and the fact that so many people are so strongly opposed to what they're doing. You can't conflate that with the power that they have from these leaders that are fornicating with one another. And I use that language because that's the language of the Bible. And that's what they're doing. Like, here in the United States where I live, our president continues to fornicate with this entity, with this system, with this kingdom. And as far as I can see, the majority of us are not on board with this. Like, we're not good with this. And yet it doesn't matter how strongly we oppose it. It doesn't even matter what Congress does. Like, nothing matters anymore, but that God is allowing them and causing them. I shouldn't even say allowing, because that just sounds really stupid. Like, someone else has a plan and God's like, oh yeah, okay, go ahead. I mean, that's not what's happening. This is God's plan. This is what he's doing. So God is causing them to be successful. Again, what did I say in the first video? Not because they are blessed, but because he is using them to enact judgment. And that judgment, by the way, is not going to be reserved or relegated to people with brown skin or black skin or who live in Palestine or Gaza. Oh, no. This is what's coming on you. This is what's coming on you when the Antichrist rises. Why? Because he tried to cleanse you, but you would not be clean. Therefore, his wrath against you. Therefore, you will not be clean until his wrath against you has subsided. That's what the word says. You didn't listen to his witnesses. I begged you and pleaded with you to listen to his witnesses. Maybe you'll listen now and save yourselves by the skin of your teeth. What do you need to do? You need to return to him. You need to fast. It is the strongest power in the Middle East, and in certain fields, it is a global power, the premier said, talking about himself, talking about Israel. This is a direct result of the way we have led the war of revival. How pathetic. What does that even mean? The war of revival. He went on using a name for the war in Gaza that the government approved in October. It is also the result of proper management of Israel's economy, an economy that is breaking records, Netanyahu added. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. From the United States, you're welcome. Netanyahu added, pointing to the strength of the shekel and foreign investment. Foreign investment? Please. Extortion, more like. Israel's debt to GDP ratio is lower than most European countries, lower than the United States. And this is after 2 years of war, he said. Wow, yeah, who do you think did that? Not doing so bad for a welfare state, are they? Many states around the world and very many world leaders are seeking us out, Netanyahu claimed. Well, he's not wrong about that. He just really isn't wrong about that. Venezuela. Maria Corina Machado, as I told you before, this woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and the reason why America is blowing up these Venezuelan ships trying to get Maduro out and doing this in the name of some drug war, even though they're bombing fishermen and blatantly killing them, killing any survivors and engaging in these war crimes. The reason that's happening is because that evil woman is begging for Israel to make him a vassal state so that she can rise to power and Maduro will be brought down. And what is the United States doing? It's bidding. If you're not going to come down by yourself, we'll bring you down, right? So they form this whole narrative and then do the bidding of Israel. That's what's going on. Many states around the world and very many world leaders are seeking us out, Netanyahu claimed. Yeah, Taiwan, Venezuela. And then there are others who are not just seeking them, who are not seeking them out, but who are blackmailed, who can't get free of what they sold themselves to. And then others who are bribed. Many states around the world and very many world leaders are seeking us out, Netanyahu claimed, before acknowledging that there are challenges. He claimed that global anger at Israel over its prosecution of the war in Gaza. Okay, so massacre on October 7th, prosecution of the war in Gaza. Got it. Ridiculous. As well as restrictions on humanitarian aid and allegations of insufficient protections for civilians caught in the fighting were all to be blamed on widespread anti-Semitism. Right. It's not that we're upset about murder. It's not that we're upset about oppression or sodomy, rape, theft of land. We're not upset about any of that. This is coming from our evil. This is coming from us just hating you because you're Jews. I don't really care what you are. If that's what you're doing, I am not okay with it. I will speak out against it, and I am not okay with funding it. Rather, so we're all to be, all of this is to be blamed on widespread anti-Semitism rather than anything Israel had done or ineffective public diplomacy. Their own people are saying that this is not okay. Their own people. And their own people who are religious and actually regard the authority of the Torah are saying Zionism is not Judaism. So are they anti-Semitic too? Well, yeah, they're a self-hating Jew. This is absurd. Waves of anti-Semitism are sweeping the West as a result of two things. Radical Muslim minorities that have entered almost every country. No, it couldn't be because we're seeing what they're doing, how they're scapegoating Muslims. It's not because of that, right? Like, I don't know anyone who's Muslim who I speak with, but I can see what's going on. I can see with my eyes what this evil nation calling themselves chosen and calling themselves Jews are doing. And that doesn't make me anti-Semitic. That makes me human. Oh, but it's the Muslims' fault. They didn't tell me what to think. No one's told me what to think. I've sat in the council of God. I know what's right and I know what's wrong. So waves of anti-Semitism are sweeping the West as a result of two things. Radical Muslim minorities that have entered almost every country. Oh my goodness, the horror. First and foremost in Europe, and alongside that, anti-Semitic incitement on social media, incitement amplified by anti-Zionist governments and organizations, the premier charged. Right, forever the victim. We are fighting this anti-Semitism around the world, he continued, noting the government's unprecedented allocation of some... How is it that we're anti-Semitic when we're paying for all of this? I just don't understand that. We are fighting this anti-Semitism around the world, he continued, noting the government's unprecedented allocation of some NIS 2.35 billion, 725 million to the foreign ministry to combat this propaganda. And by combating this propaganda, he means to put out our own propaganda. I believe we must fight it with new methods. I mean, look at, like, the way that you phrase things is pretty interesting, isn't it? Like, massacre over here, but over here we're prosecuting. And then here we have combating propaganda versus anti-Semitism. Their propaganda is anti-Semitism. Ours is combating. I believe we must fight it with new methods, Netanyahu added, while insisting that we must look at our tremendous achievements. Oh, yeah, you should be really proud. You should be able to sleep well at night. At the same time, Netanyahu argued that Israel's diplomatic standing remained significant, pointing to the visit of German Chancellor Friedrich Merz this week. A visit, he said, came at Merz's request. He also cited his upcoming December 29th meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, and as I understand it, I thought they met today, so we'll hear more on that, in the United States, which his office announced shortly before the debate, saying that the U.S. remains Israel's closest ally. No doubt it does, because, but the odd thing is that Israel has succeeded the U.S. as a global power. It's not that's not untrue. What Netanyahu is saying, and this is part of what I'm trying to show you, is that biblical prophecy tells us that they're going to be in power. So you should not be listening to political commentaries commentators who are telling you otherwise. You should not be listening to that. I don't care how popular they are. I don't care if you've really liked things they said in the past. If that's what they're saying, you know they're not speaking on the word and that they don't have this discernment, because Israel will continue to rise. And this is what I'm trying to show you right now about what he's saying. He is a liar. He is a liar of liars. And yet, this part of what he's saying is not wrong. They have positioned themselves through extortion, through bribery, through blackmail, and through false promises. I mean, they've even used the so-called, power of the United States, or perceived power of the United States, in order to make deals with other nations, such as Taiwan. Why are they using the name of the United States in order to make these deals with other nations? That's kind of weird, isn't it? But they are. And yes, the United States, although Israel has succeeded it as a global power, has invaded it, has taken over it. And even though the United States is resenting this, and Israel resents that the United States would ever, in a million years, tell them how to allocate the funds that they're giving them, or question them on how they're allocating those funds, or what they're doing in Gaza, despite all that, they are remaining allies. Not because there is genuine loyalty, not because there is genuine trust, or any such thing, or love, not because of any of that. But we do know that, according to Revelation 13, that the United States will cause anyone who will not worship the image of the beast that it created, that it gave breath to, that it gave power to, that if you do not worship it and you do not receive its mark, you will not be able to buy or sell. You will be blacklisted. Not only that, but you will be imprisoned and killed. And the United States will be part of making that happen. And it was just recently, in the last day, Ken Klippenstein broke this leak telling us about a Trump memorandum, or DOJ memorandum, in which the FBI is making lists of American extremists who are defined as anti-capitalism, anti-Christian, anti-American, anyone who adheres to radical gender ideology, and this is intentionally vague, but does say that if you don't adhere, or you speak in opposition to, or you clarify based on Scripture what Christianity actually is, and what America actually is in the Bible, which is the false prophet, if you're speaking those things, you are considered a domestic terrorist. And some of this is going to be considered treason. This is going to be eventually punishable by death. And it's not going to matter what color your skin is. This is war on the American people by its own country. So yeah, he's not wrong. He's not delusional about this. The U.S. remains Israel's closest ally and will continue to do its bidding until the time of the end. And then it will be thrown into the lake of burning sulfur when Jesus comes back with his bride, those who've gone up in the first resurrection, and will throw the false prophet and the antichrist into the lake of burning sulfur. And then he will slay the rest of the rest with the double-edged sword coming out of his mouth, and they will stay there. They will continue to be convicted until the 1,000 years have ended and the second resurrection has taken place, and that time period has ended and a remnant has been brought out of that. They will continue to stay in that torment of the slaying of the double-edged sword that comes out of the mouth of Christ. They will stay in that until the judgment, at which time they will also be thrown into the lake of burning sulfur. He repeated his claim that we are on the verge of completing the first stage of Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza, adding that now we are focusing on the next mission, dismantling Hamas of its weapons and demilitarizing the Gaza Strip. He noted that efforts are still underway to return the final remaining hostage in Gaza, Ron Gavili, saying, "We will not let go of this sacred mission to bring Ronnie home," as though he's cared anything about Israeli lives. He does not care anything about Israeli lives. Neither does Trump. Neither of these people have any business having the word peace on their lips, because these are not people who have any interest in peace. Netanyahu also touted his close ties with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, remember in Daniel 11 where we talked about with a few people he will rise to power. He's telling you the people right here. The United States, now he's talking about Russia, and he's going to specifically mention India, which India is always mentioned because India prostitutes itself to Israel. All of these have nationalist, supremacist agendas, and they don't care who they have to kill to get there. Netanyahu also touted his close ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin, largely reviled in the West for his invasion of Ukraine. Well, not so much by the United States. I mean, Trump seems okay with him, and he's kind of shut up about it, hasn't he? He got frustrated with him for a minute, and then he shut up about it. Like, all of a sudden, his resentment just went away. He's not talking about it anymore. Wonder who shut him up. Ties between Jerusalem and Moscow were essentially frozen for years, but in recent months, Putin and Netanyahu have held several phone calls during which the veteran leaders discussed regional issues related to Gaza, Syria, and Iran. Also, I mentioned to you that this relationship with Russia, Ehud Barak was not able to directly contact Russia, but you know who was? Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was able to. How? What kind of power did he have? You want to tell me that he was not working for Mossad? Why did this man have the ability to call up President Putin when the Prime Minister of Israel couldn't do that? We see the writing on the wall. We're not idiots, right? Right? We maintain continuous contact with another global superpower, Russia. I speak with President Putin on a regular basis, and this personal relationship of many years serves up. I mean, he's always touting these close relationships like this man knows anything about a relationship. On a regular basis, and this personal relationship of many years serves our vital interests, including attempts to prevent us from defending our northern border, he said without elaborating, asserting that, of course, that will not happen. Putin has urged Netanyahu to respect the territorial integrity of Syria, where the IDF holds a buffer zone and where Russia maintains significant military assets and air defense systems. The premier also addressed the contentious matters of his recent request for a pardon in his corruption trial from President Isaac Herzog and efforts to establish a commission of inquiry on the October 7th massacre. Referencing his pardon request, Netanyahu repeated his assertion that the good of the country requires his trial being halted, saying, "There's a real dilemma here between the desire to continue exposing the injustice, the persecution, and the national needs, only some of which you know. Oh, you don't know all of it, but I'm holding it for you because I care so much about Israel. Security challenges as well as major opportunities I'm working on. Well, then share them." He's such a liar, like as though he's the protector of the people of Israel. Step down then. Step down and let somebody else take over. You are not God. He's not going to do that because then he'd have to face his war crimes and his fraud. He maintained, however, if it comes, it comes, and if it doesn't come, it doesn't come. Lapid, in his address, urged the Prime Minister to admit guilt, accept that the crime is one of moral turpitude, and go home, warning that any alternative would tear the country apart. Crimes that are designated as moral turpitude normally require the offender to withdraw from public office. So if he were to admit guilt and then get pardoned, he would have to step down from office. But he doesn't have the guarantee that he's going to get the pardon, right? So, and I don't know that he would step down. Besides the fact that this is not the only thing that he's facing. He's not just facing the courts in his own country. He's facing international courts, criminal courts. So it's not the only thing he's facing. Without an admission of guilt and without accepting that the crime constituted moral turpitude, it's not a pardon, it's a prize. It means that for those with power, the laws simply don't apply, he said. And he's right. The opposition leader also mocked the coalition's push to establish its own commission of inquiry into the October 7th attacks, rather than a state commission, calling it a farce that amounts to investigating yourselves. Hello? Thank you for stating the obvious. Well, I don't understand. Why does the United States accept this? Oh, you're going to investigate it? Oh, okay. All right, you're going to investigate your own crimes? It's ridiculous. The government decided last month to establish its own probe into the failures surrounding this Hamas invasion and massacre, again, there's that word again, on October 7th, 2023, rather than set up the State Commission of Inquiry that is traditionally formed to investigate significant disasters. Netanyahu has long opposed the establishment of a state commission of inquiry into the onslaught, the single deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust, and the worst disaster in modern Israeli history, despite polls that have consistently indicated a clear majority of Israelis support it, including the families of hostages and those murdered during the attacks. The establishment of the commission and its makeup will be done equally between the coalition of the opposition, Netanyahu said during his address. Who could oppose this? Only someone who does not want to reveal the truth. Isn't that what he's doing by avoiding going to court and trying to get a pardon? Like, come on. He added that it will be an independent commission of inquiry that will enjoy broad public trust, and that it will be a challenging one. Everyone will be challenged. So that's the end of that. It's kind of weird in this article, because I read multiple articles, and one of the things I was expecting to read in here, although it did talk about Russia, I was expecting it to talk about India, because he specifically mentioned India in his speech, stating that dismissing claims of diplomatic collapse, asserting that Israel today is stronger than ever and a global power in certain fields, and then he cited strong relations with various countries, particularly India and Russia. Now, we've also seen that Israel is forming relationships with Taiwan. We saw that a few weeks ago. And we've also seen that Venezuela, as I mentioned, is begging to become a vassal state of Israel. And so I'm just trying to show you that he kind of tells on himself. He tells you what he's up to, guys. Like, I mean, he's not very smart. He tells you what he's up to. He told us what he was up to after the United Nations speech, meeting with those people, filmed, saying that we have to invest more money into this information war and putting out propaganda. And part of the money that they invested in was, essentially like, I mean, if you go to Google or ChatGPT, you go to AI, you're going to see that you are not allowed, you must speak in a particular way, and AI is going to speak to you in a particular way, and they are not going to allow any condemnation, any kind of language that implicates Israel in a genocide or says anything negative about them. Well, that is at the behest of Israel. What about them buying TikTok? What about their relationships with Elon Musk and the fact that X used to translate what was being said in Hebrew, but in order to protect evil people speaking evil in Hebrew, in order to protect them from themselves, from not being able to control their own tongues and actually be accountable, it no longer interprets from Hebrew to English. It no longer interprets Hebrew. So here's the war on information. But what I am trying to show you is that he's telling on himself. He's letting us know we are a global superpower. That is our goal. And here are the countries who are helping us to rise to this power. Anybody who wants to tell me that they are not in power, then tell me how they're getting away with this. How are they getting away with it? How are they getting away with what they're doing? And how are these other nations prostituting themselves, even to their own destruction, their own demise? Why is the United States doing that? Because the United States doesn't do that for anybody. Neither does Europe. So why are they doing that? Tell me how they're not in power. Tell me how they're falling. Give me a break. Just because people don't agree with it and they strongly oppose it doesn't mean that those in power are not bought and don't have the power to continue to give their power and authority to this little state. So let's not be naive about this. You can hate a country. That doesn't mean that they're not in power. Again, Daniel 11 verse 23, after coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people, he will rise to power. Do you see that he's acting deceitfully? And actually, it doesn't mean that he's acting deceitfully and then people turn on him. What's happening, what you see happening is that he's acting deceitfully, that the nation is acting deceitfully, and that they've got these people locked in, some of them, through blackmail, extortion, bribery, etc. And then you need to understand that all these people who are saying, "Oh, this is our BFF, and we have such a good relationship, and we're the closest ally," etc., etc. It says, when the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. Israel is going to invade and take over these other nations just the same, if it hasn't done already, to a certain extent, will continue to do that the same as it has done with the United States. You need to go discern that, because you're going to be living through these times. I'm almost out of here. I'm waiting to be out of here. But you're going to be here, and you need to know what's happening. You need to know whether what I'm saying is true or not. And then you need to know what you're going to be doing if you're here. Verse 33, after the witnesses have died and the Antichrist has risen, because it's in power right now, but it hasn't risen from the abyss, those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword or be burned or captured or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere will join them. Some of the wise will stumble so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless until the time of the end, for it will still come at the appointed time. This will be successful until the time of the end. You will die. You will die if you belong to him. In fact, everyone's going to die. But you will be martyred. Let's put it that way. You will be martyred by that image of the Antichrist. And it is for this reason that Jesus said things like, don't fear those who kill the body. Fear the one who can, after the body has been killed, can destroy both soul and body in hell. There's a reason he said these things to you. There's a reason he said the very people who kill you are going to claim to be doing a service to God. Why did he say those things? Because it was understood by early Christians. This is the reason why Paul says that there were some who were being tortured in prisons who refused to be released so that they could gain an even better resurrection. What in the world does that mean? Well, there's two resurrections. The first one is the better one. That's the one that is the bride of Christ. That's the one that gets martyred. Please discern this with God.